Good morning, Delaware. It is a beautiful autumn Friday morning, and it's a bittersweet day here, but a lot of sweet because Fred's here!
Yay!
The man who brought this show to the air in the very first place almost 7 years ago. Fred, welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's what is it? Dance with the one who brung you?
That's exactly right. Yeah, we had Darren last week, Fred this week. I mean, it's nostalgia.
It is.
It's nostalgia month here at
it's fun.
Off the Shelf.
That's what I planned. I worked really hard.
Yes, she did.
Nicole has been telling me for months that she had a big surprise for our last show, and I walked out after being on Breakfast Club. I was going to go out in the lobby, grab a cup of coffee, and there's Fred. It was
Fred, old buddy, old pal.
Yeah, it was like Old Home Week. So we are going to talk about what he's been doing. We were talking about a little bit about the library. We're talking about a little bit. I don't know what the heck we're going to talk about. I didn't prepare a book. I didn't do any of that stuff.
Oh man,
Well, actually, I've been reading, so.
That's great. All right.
Well, we can talk about books.
Sure we
Yeah.
can. All right, go ahead. I see you got one in front of you, Nicole. Go ahead.
I do.
I
I have.
actually can talk about the book I was going to talk about last week, but then Darren just wouldn't shut up. So
I know. Yeah.
Imagine that.
Those boys stole the show last week.
They did.
And I was going to talk about this one too. My final book with George, I think you would actually enjoy this one. It's called Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan.
Okay.
It is a story. I had no idea what this book was about going into it. I thought it was going to be, just kind of a whimsy book about books for librarians who like books, right? That's a genre all its own.
It is.
And it is a story about a 20-something guy living in kind of Silicon Valley, Oakland, California, San Francisco, California. And he walks into this 24-hour bookstore called Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore, and he's looking for work. He says he's trying to code, trying to freelance by day, but wants just some extra money. So the guy is a little bit quirky, a little bit eccentric, and he asks him a couple weird questions. He's like, what do these have to do with anything? But hires him anyway. He works the night shift, like midnight to 8 a.m., and he basically has two rules. You can sell the books in the front. You can't sell the books in the back. The books in the back are part of like a lending program that he doesn't really understand the rules to. And you have to write down a log of every person who comes in and why they came in and what kind of state they were in and maybe what their cufflinks looked like and maybe what their hair looked like and if they felt frazzled and if they did this and if they did that. So you have to log it. You have to say it. And so he's like, this doesn't make any sense. But then he sees some of the other eccentrics who are coming in the middle of the night, and he decides, like, this is kind of weird, but they all seem like they're following a pattern. Like, every time they come in, they're frazzled, and they're like, oh, I need the blah, 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 blah next. Like, it seems like they're on a quest. And so with his little knowledge of coding, he's going to start kind of playing around with making some 3D images of the store, logging what the people are requesting, and he sees patterns emerging. And he's like, well, they're following a pattern. Well, it turns out that this book club that these people are participating in for the books in the back.
Those were air quotes for you listening at home.
The quote-unquote book club that's happening, they might be part of a more secret society than we thought they were, and there might be larger implications for the hunt that they are trying to figure out, which is leading them from book to book across the store. So it's a little culty. It's a little kind of fun. There's a little bit of like a heisty kind of feeling to it too. But peppered in throughout all of that is he's a really good first-person voice. The guy who it centers around, Clay, he's just a fun narrator. You really like him. You hear a lot of his own thoughts interrupting the people who he's listening to, and so that makes it a lot of fun too. And he is kind of sarcastic, and he's just got a really enjoyable character. And he's trying to crack the code. Oh, and there are tons of like 21st century like nerdy references like Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, Google plays a big thing in it because that's where they are. And he's got a girlfriend who's there. So it's a whole lot of fun. Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore. If you like books about books, if you like books that have geeky culture, if you like books that have a quest or a mystery that you feel like you have to solve, then you'll like this one.
All right.
Books about books.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, Fred, what have you been reading?
Well, my middle daughter, that worldwide pandemic that shall not be named.
Yeah.
During that time, my middle daughter decided that I should read. So I did. She got me the Mitch album, the 5 people you
Right.
meet, and then the follow up to that, and then she got me hooked on this. Put your glasses on. It's called The Broken Road. It's a whole series. And where I just looked it up so I have the author's name in front of me. Richard. What is it? Of course it won't tell me. Richard Paul Evans. It's a series of 3 books. It's The Forgotten Road, The Broken Road, The Road Home, and something else. But it's about a multimillionaire who gets a second chance because he's supposed to be on this plane. Well, the plane crashes, and everyone perishes on the plane. But it's somehow, he's not on the plane, so he doesn't know what to do with himself. And he doesn't want to immediately, come back to life and say, hey, I'm still here, da-da-da-da-da. He goes to his own funeral. So very few people show up that he's a little shocked by that. So then he decides to walk Route 66 from Chicago to Santa Monica, where his soon-to-be ex-wife still lives, and he wants, he just is, this is his trek, and it follows his trek out west, and it's a good series of reads.
That sounds really
it
interesting.
really is.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Broken Road series, yes.
Yeah.
By Richard Paul Evans.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
There's 3 of them.
Great. So I actually did have a book prepared for last week, but I never got to it, so I can talk about that if I can remember everything that I'm supposed to remember. But this is
You can just wing it. That's what.
It's the 4th
It's the last show.
That's true, right? The FCC's
You're
not going to
fired
come after
next
me
week.
now. Yeah. This is called the book was called A Rule Against Murder. It is Louise Penny's Inspector Gamache books, and it's the 4th in the series. Now, Hannah Simpson of your team.
She's listening.
Good.
She says hi, Fred.
She's one, and Jim McPeak, who's a friend of mine who's a librarian, a retired librarian up in the Cleveland area, have been after me for years to read Louise Penny, and for some reason I just never got into it. Started it, and I am hooked on the series. So this was the 4th book in the series. It takes place. Most of the books take place in this town called Three Pines, which is on the Vermont-Quebec border. And this one actually takes place at a little resort that's not far from there, where Inspector Gamache and his wife, Ariane Marie, are spending their anniversary. And another large family has sort of taken over the rest of the inn. And they are the ultimate dysfunctional family. They all really basically hate each other. There's one daughter from the family is coming. Her husband has just gone to jail out in Vancouver because of insurance fraud. And so she's kind of trying to get her head back together. There's another daughter and her husband are there with their son who is a little peculiar. And there's other actually it's just the mother with that son. And there's 2 other kids, and they are all just at each other. And the reason they're all there is because a statue of the patriarch of the family is going to be placed on this property because it was meaningful to the family. So the statue is put out, and one night during a storm, the statue falls off its plinth on top of one of the members of the family.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. So the question is not just who did it and why, but how the heck did they get that statue off the plinth of this big, heavy sculpture? Because it's it's more than full size. It's like about 8 feet tall, granite. Mm-hmm. How did it fall off the plinth? So that's where the mystery is. And then conveniently, this inn is like just over the mountains from Three Pines. So Three Pines does get into the story too. Three Pines has got to be like Cabot Cove. The most murderous small town in Canada.
Don't want to live there.
Yeah, right, exactly. The murder rate there is like...
But apparently you also don't want to live adjacent to it either.
Apparently not.
Right.
But what makes these stories so good is the characterizations. Inspector Gamache is a fascinating character. He is... he's now the chief homicide inspector for the Quebec Sûreté, which is basically like the Ohio Public Investigations, not the state police because they're mostly highway, but you know what I mean, FBI, but think of for Quebec. And he's been on the outs with his superiors. That's sort of been settled in the book before this, but he's still kind of iffy. He's got some interesting characters who report to him, who are really good at what they do, but have their own issues, shall we say. And it's just, the characters are so well drawn. The dialogue is so good. And it talks about a society that is so close to America, but so different in the terms of the Quebecois, the French-speaking Quebecers, that it's almost like reading about a truly foreign, alien type society, and yet it's right there on our doorstep. So it's fascinating. And so I'm just starting book 5 now, and can't recommend it highly enough. Again, it's Louise Penny, Inspector Gamache. It starts with a book called Still Life. The 18th book in the series is coming out in November.
Yeah.
So
that was my question: is how many?
Worth your time? Yes.
Yeah.
So
Well,
anyway,
you've got time now.
yes, I do. I do, and I still have some nice days to sit out on the patio and read.
Couple.
Looking forward to it. So anyway, we will be back with Fred Shaffer in just a few minutes. So please stay tuned. Rick, I sort of enjoyed the poetic sense of your weather forecast, but you really need some diction lessons.
He was dragging it out there.
He certainly was. Yeah.
I have 30 seconds to fill, and I will do it.
Fred doesn't miss that at all.
No.
That is the dulcet tones of Fred Shaffer, who was actually the founder of this radio show. I remember when Nicole and I met the first time, you said that you wanted to do a radio show. It had been put off because you were on maternity leave and Mary Jane really wasn't interested.
And she was retiring soon anyway.
And when you mentioned radio, it was like, really? Wow.
Yeah, because you came in on that. It was a Monday,
It was
or
a Monday or
Tuesday.
Tuesday, and Friday we were on the air.
Friday morning you came in, and I was
That's
like,
right.
well, this is how you're supposed to do it.
And that
It's
is how we
fascinating.
did it, and we've
Yeah.
been doing it for almost 7 years since. So
Yeah.
thank you for getting us
Absolutely.
off the ground like that. It was
Was
great.
that your first? Wait a minute. How old is Win?
That was Win, yeah. That was, so I had
She's
Win.
12?
No. I had Win in 2014.
Oh,
Now, City
And-
Digest has
Yeah.
been on that long.
Right,
We've only
right,
been on
right.
7 years.
Yes.
Yeah. I had Win in 2014. She is 7 now, and so we've been doing this through 2 babies, 2 maternity leaves.
And I think we have missed exactly 3 Fridays. We missed
There was a snow.
2 because of snow, and we missed 1 because it was on Christmas was on a Friday, and they were only playing music, so
Yeah.
we didn't
Right.
even do a
They
recorded
told
show.
us don't come in.
Right. So I think those are the only 3 shows we've actually missed in the 7-year run.
Even during COVID, we
did it from home?
Yeah, we did it from home. We figured out Skype and recorded, and we had our guests phone in.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But not really. Because trying to hook up laptop to this board is like...
right. It was.
I'm really sorry I missed that.
I'm sure you, yeah. Right. Cage is throwing stuff across the board.
But and when you left, Gage stepped in as
Yes.
our engineer, and
He started out as young Gage, and he
Yeah.
stayed young Gage.
he's still young Gage. Yeah, right.
I actually started out as like the video team, and then
Yeah,
then
that's
I
right,
did the whole
he's
video thing, and now I'm doing both.
How nice.
That's what happens when you volunteer for a job.
Exactly right.
They give it to you.
And that's the thing with radio too. I think everybody does a little of everything.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
have to.
I
Yeah.
hear Mark, doing commercials, and I hear your voice still on the Friends spot there, and in other commercials, and I know Gage is running around doing the electronics, setting up for like the races at the last week at the fair, and everybody just kind of doubles in brass. So
Yep, absolutely.
I'd probably get you out there selling commercials too.
We did hear your voice a handful of times. Do you still do any
Yeah,
voiceover work?
Yeah, I still do. Yeah, I do stuff for the Columbus Dispatch and some other various and sundry items. And I was going to say, Bob Allen reached out to me earlier this week. He said, we're running out of people. Can you just read? Yeah, I'll read.
Do you have a setup in your home, or
Yeah.
you do?
Yeah.
In
Just
the
take a
base-
microphone into my walk-in closet, and it works. It's sound deadening.
That's what I did
My
in
wife
college.
has enough clothes,
Yeah.
and shoes and stuff. that-
My wife has enough clothes that you could probably deaden the sound for most of Dublin.
There you go. Nice.
So give us a little hint about what you are doing these days.
I'm working for a company called the Team Management. That's the experts at acquisition and management. And it's sports and entertainment. A lot of sponsorship involved with that. We're working on the Ohio Play-by-Play Classic, which is coming up later on this fall. Bronny James is going to be in that, Scottie Pippen's son, and there's a third one that just escaped my mind because, of course, I'm trying to think of it.
Of course.
But we're doing that. Also working on sort of a top secret indoor women's professional sports.
Ooh.
And we'll be making an announcement on that later this fall.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It really is.
Good. I'm glad. And I just I can't thank you enough for getting us started on
See?
this road. It's been so
It's
much
fun, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
And remember, I just told you, it's just a conversation between two people.
It really
with
is.
Lots of people eavesdropping.
Right.
I hope there's lots of people.
Yes. There
But
sure
it's
there
always fun when you're out somewhere and like somebody tell that story.
Yeah, I was going to say we should talk about that because it is fun whenever some of my favorite memories have been people randomly saying that they listen to Off the Shelf. I've heard that my coworker's husband came home from the gym one Friday morning, and he said, "Your library is on the radio?" And she said, "Yeah, how do you know that?" And she said, "They were playing it in my gym." I was like, wow, that's great pumping iron tunes, right?
I get a really good pump work listening to that book. Yeah.
We are going to
What
pump
did you read today?
you up.
Darren shared a story where he was walking down the street in downtown Delaware and he heard something coming from someone's car. They were just like playing their radio as loud as possible, but then he heard a familiar voice and it was us off the shelf. So they're blasting off the shelf downtown Delaware.
I was standing somewhere talking to Joyce, and this woman kept looking at me and looking at me. I said, and she finally said, "You're on the radio, aren't you? On that library show?" And I said, "Yeah." Like, yes. Am I bragging or complaining? So,
And I even had it.
Fantastic.
I was at Boardman Arts Park a couple weeks ago, and I was there was crafting stations all around. And it's me and my girls, and we were actually being quiet for the first time. We're not often quiet, me and my girls, and we were coloring. And there were two other families there, and they were talking about something, and it, of course, actually reminded me of a book, which seems very on brand for me. And so I said, "Oh, there's a book about that," and I started talking about it, and the woman who was sitting there did like a triple take, and she goes, "You're famous." And I was like, boo. You know?
Anybody ever say, "I know your voice, but I don't know where I know it"?
Right. And she was like, "No, you're on the radio." And I was like, "Oh, you listen to a show?" You know?
No, you don't. It's not a question. It's always a statement. Oh, you listen to the show.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're the one.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't use Arbitron, they use Randomtron. So those random chance encounters with people who listen to the show are always fun.
Yeah,
So
it is a lot of fun.
so
We
anyway.
we are famous, George.
What are you going to be doing, Sir George? I don't know.
I'm going to miss the microphone.
Yeah.
You can always just come back.
Yeah.
Mark just invited me to come back to do Mid-Ohio Breakfast Club now and then. So
Yeah.
I have to have something interesting to talk about, and that's what I have from the library. So
That's
I
true.
won't have as much when I'm just sitting on the front porch telling kids to get off my lawn.
But she's not.
But you can start your acting career. You can do it in several voices.
There
and
you go. Right.
You know, Macbeth.
I can work on my accents.
Get
and,
thee off the lawn.
Hide thee away, peasant.
You can do it in different costumes every day too.
That'd be fantastic.
For Halloween, yeah.
And as they carry me off to the Laughing Academy, yes. No, I did it on purpose.
Gladys, that man's out on his front porch again.
We didn't know that Fred did the Chrysler Dodge Matthews voice.
Oh, well. So,
Shoot.
no, I'm looking forward to just taking it easy, doing
Good
a
for
little
you.
volunteer work, doing a little traveling, getting in Joyce's way when she's trying to get stuff done.
There you go. Attaboy. I was going to say, you got a few things accomplished while you were here.
I had a few things, but yeah. It's
Maybe
been-
a statue in front of the new. Which
well,
branch is it's the
The Liberty Branch
The Liberty
Library.
Branch,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're.
plinth. I'm going to carry that word with me for a while.
It's a good crossword puzzle
is.
word.
Oh,
yeah.
I was, when you were talking about your book and the giant bronze statue, I was like, well, there we go.
Yeah.
That's what we need. But then you talked about how it murdered someone, and I was like, well, maybe not. So, although that would be very on brand for you to have a
murder
statue.
somebody? I have a list, but really, I mean,
With your noir novel loves and things like that.
That's it.
Mystery.
Maybe I'll open a little private detective agency in Columbus. And I can, wear a fedora and have a cigarette hanging out of my mouth.
Nice.
Get a trench coat and
Everything has to be in black and white, though.
Of course, yeah.
We'll have to make that work. Yeah.
So.
Practice your makeup.
And I need a secretary with a dark past.
Yes.
Just because that's what always comes with the territory. So.
And she needs some good, what are the glasses? The
Cat
cat eye
eye.
glasses,
Yeah,
yes.
so-
Right.
I can see that, yes. George Needham, detective for hire.
Yes.
There we go.
Maybe it's a radio show. I don't know.
Retirement plans.
Oh, hey, start your own
I
podcast.
Bring
Write
back
a
old time
novel.
radio, yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
There you
it.
go.
Yeah, and maybe I'll sprout wings and fly to Venus. If I do, I'll make sure that Gage knows I'm going because of his fondness for space.
Yes.
Got to come down and watch you launch.
I have.
Actually, probably just go to the Solar Saloon and watch me launch.
Oh, there you go. Hey, they got the big screen TVs. Why not?
There we go.
I have 2 questions. One for Gage, one for Fred, one for George.
Well, that's
One-
three.
one
That's
question.
3 questions.
One question
well,
for
that's
all
why she
3
works
of
in the
you.
library.
Yeah,
The math
I
is,
know the math is bad. What's a show that you all remember? A memory from off the shelf. That's how we'll. That's how we'll end it.
Spot. Oh, good.
George
I'll
seems
tell you
like
the
he
one I
knows.
remember is the time somebody was talking about a book that had a picture of all of these vultures eating the leftover carcass after a zebra after the lions had attacked it. And I said, "Oh, it reminds me of lunchtime at the Golden Corral." And you reacted exactly like that. And I said, "Oh, are they a sponsor of yours?"
Oh, my goodness.
And you're like, I said that. One of my favorite memories was when we had the turtle lady, Miss Nancy Lockhart, on, and she had the turtles, she had her bearded dragons, but then she brought out her snakes.
Yes. Oh. What was it? Dreamsicle?
Creamsicle.
Creamsicle.
And George cowered in the corner.
Yes, I do
bet I
remember
did.
those. Yes. Oh, those are fun.
Mine, I think it was just a few weeks ago. It was that what was that animal that I forgot her name?
Oh, the
Sensi the
hedgehog.
Hedgehog,
Yeah, Erica.
That was
Erica
interesting.
Carlson, yeah.
Because
She's
like
fun.
she opened the box, there was clearly nothing in there. Then all of a sudden, she turns it around and there's a hedgehog in there.
That's
She's a good
fantastic.
magician.
Magic.
And she's great with Sedgy the Hedgehog.
Yes.
So anyway.
I was going to say my favorites, actually, probably the first time that Mr. George came on. And, just this rather large
great
fellow, very
personality.
gentle. He comes on, and this other person popped out of him, and then a ukulele and something else. And I was like, wow.
That's a very common reaction to Mr. George. Yes, George Morrison is quite an entertainer.
Oh, my
he really
goodness.
is.
Well, I did a count, and on this show, by what I could count, we have interviewed 35 authors in our 7 years, 35 published authors, and then some even unpublished or some local or, other things like that. We've been on the show for 365 weeks, which means that we've done about the same in guests other than the few that we have missed. We've had many, many familiar faces. We've had many a show where it was just you and I, and we've had many a show where it was with Mr. George or Miss Kelly or Kellen, our friends in the community. We can't thank all the people who have done this show enough. WDLR, the Friends of the Library, Fred and Gage, Mark, everybody. It's just been really amazing. So
It's been a fun trip.
I can't talk anymore else or I'm going to cry. But I will say that
We also can't talk anymore because we are rapidly running
out of
this
time. Yeah.
Did they record early or are they standing out there getting
No, they're
mad?
standing out there
They're
giving us
standing out
heck.
there probably.
Yeah.
Grumbling under their
Rumbling
breath.
under their breath, yes.
But Fred, I want to thank you for
Absolutely.
joining us to bring it back from where it
wouldn't have
began.
missed it. I wouldn't have missed it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Fred.
And-
that's the voice of Fred Shaffer, the voice of so many things in this community, including the Friends of the Library. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for coming back for this. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. My pleasure.
George, it's been great. I couldn't imagine doing this with anyone else. I don't know who I'm doing it with next week. It'll be a surprise for all of us.
Yay!
Well, I'm sure whoever you have on, you're going to raise their game.
Ooh. Very nice.
Nice.
All right.
That's good.
Thank you, Gage.
Absolutely, George. Thank you so much for coming by. Good luck to you in your retirement.
Thanks very much. Thanks again, Nicole. Thank you, Fred. And we'll still see you in the stacks.